I really enjoyed the movie, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Well,
coming indeed from a fan of Jean Renoir, it's a big compliment.
you had me in absolute floods of tears. I'll give you that.
Oh, well, I hope they were hot tears, not cold ones.
No, I was reading that you stumbled across this story, finding it in a kind of newspaper, and I'm just wondering, when you read the news or you pick up magazines or just watching the kind of TV, do you think subconsciously as a filmmaker you're always kind of on the hunt for a good story?
I don't know subconsciously. I certainly know that I have very limited imagination, and in fact, the last 3 films I made, or the first 3 as a writer-director I made, were all inspired by news pieces. At a news piece, on an interview with somebody who was doing a job that then became Eddie Marson's job in my film before this one, Still Life. It certainly has helped me reading newspapers, but in general, I'm just interested in people. I'm not very interested in what's going on in my own head. I'm interested in what is happening to other people out there, especially people who didn't have the privileged life and upbringing that I had. If I have one quality, is curiosity and maybe a little sensitivity or at least interest in other people. And that's why newspapers have become maybe this main source of inspiration for my work in the last few years.
But I mean, you managed to sort of tell stories that could be quite profoundly moving, but there's always a kind of lightness to them, and they're very kind of watchable, and there's quite warm and tender. Is that quite a difficult balance to get right when dealing with the notion of death?
Well, yes and no. And yes, because you can touch or you can discuss death in very dramatic and melodramatic ways, of course. I would say that I don't think of this film as a film about death at all. It's a film about love and life. It's about the life of a father and a son. It's about the love between a father and a son. It's a love story to me. And of course, different people would treat different stories or different situations in different ways. I think that in a funny way, the more dramatic a situation is, the more it needs to be treated with what I would call low volume. We're not at 11, we have to be at 2, if you see what I mean. And I think that in that way you can capture the truthfulness and the intensity and the smallness of daily life and make it more significant and more relatable to an audience. There are moments in cinema where we want to go and see Indiana Jones jumping from a tank to a submarine and explosions, or for that matter, we want a Douglas Sirk melodrama. There's nothing wrong with them, absolutely. My taste in general is for quieter films, for more subtle films. And I think that this situation, the situation I read about and that I researched, sort of naturally told me to approach it in a very quiet way. And I think it might stay with you a little longer because it's more relatable to our daily lives, really, to our quiet daily lives. Most people's lives are quiet. Most people's lives don't have submarines to jump on or, technicolor moments. And we walk out to the cinema and we've been touched more if we can imagine ourselves in the situations that we see on the screen.
Well, you mentioned, I mean, obviously, as you mentioned at the beginning, I'm a huge Jean Renoir fan, and obviously it sounds like you are too. Because when you said that, I realized, well, how does he know that? And I realized it's my Twitter picture, isn't it? Yeah. How, when you make your sort of movies, how inspired are you by the great filmmakers from before you, and not just from Britain or from Italy, but just from all around the world when it comes to telling stories?
Well, I think that a writer and a director in particular, when approaching the job of going on the set and deciding what to do, what language to use for a film, naturally has to do some thinking and make a number of decisions. And those decisions are usually reference points and reference points of the history of cinema. When I made Still Life, my reference was Ozu. Of course, it is, you cannot mention Ozu and Pasolini in the same sentence. But what I'm saying is that we can't pretend to follow in their footsteps, but they are masters, and they're called masters because they teach. And you steal or you get inspired by the language that different filmmakers use for different films, for telling different stories, and you find the one that most suits your own instincts together with the story you want to tell. I had long conversations when we came to this film with the wonderful Marius Panduru, who is a brilliant, brilliant director of photography from Romania, on how we would film the film, whether the camera should be static, whether it should be handheld, whether it should be on the shoulder, whether it should be traveling at all on tracks. What was the language that we would shoot it in, which would obviously influence the language that it would be finally in after the editing process. And we ended up deciding that we wanted a very quiet handheld camera. So a camera that didn't feel handheld, but was handheld, which is a different feeling, a different sense of a static camera on a tripod. So fortunately, he had strong shoulders, and he was able to do that throughout the 30 days of the shoot. And the reference here, I looked a lot at Dardenne brothers, films of the Dardenne brothers, of course, Ken Loach, and both in terms of the acting style or the non-acting style, if you want to call it like that, the non-style, and the camera work and the use of the very sparse use of music, if and when it's there. The intention really was not to make a film that would push buttons and force people to feel emotions, but to share emotions. I mean, I was very emotional while I was making the film. I was emotional while I was writing the film. And I would have liked to think that people watching the film will feel the emotions I felt without me telling them to feel things, without underlying moments with a burst of music, a big performance. And of course, that was only possible working with actors who understood that approach and were prepared to disappear into people. I don't think of John and Michael as characters. I think of them as two persons, as a unit, a magical unit created of 4 years of love between this young single father and his boy, his growing boy. And James was able, before we started filming and during the filming itself, to develop this extraordinary friendship, real love with young Daniel, and to bring that real friendship and real connection that they had off camera and bring it in front of the camera. So that when we ended up filming, what I thought would have needed to be a process of snippets merged together in the editing to create a relationship that wasn't there, with became shooting two shots that stayed there on camera, on screen for minutes, and recording a true relationship, true love, a true connection, a true, those looks that the father and the son exchanges are real. You can't fake those. Well, you can maybe fake them when you're splicing single shots together, but we didn't do that. We just caught them. It was quite magical, and nothing to do with me, as I said. It's maybe the gods of cinema sprinkled some dust on us, and these moments happened. And I was there sitting, looking at the monitor, or very often just looking at them, which is sometimes better because you capture more. And I would have tears running down my eyes just because I wasn't witnessing them recreating something I had written. I was just witnessing life. It was really a special, very special experience.
Oh, well, I think that sort of the way you approach this material has really sort of impacted on the audience as well. I got a real sense for that. You mentioned how your emotions are in there. I got a real sense for that. It feels like a very human piece. I thought it was a really great a great movie, and I'm afraid I'm out of time, unfortunately.
Thank you.
No, but thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'm looking forward to speaking to James later as well. So I want to speak more about, I could speak about Daniel as well. What a great talent he is. But anyway,
he's amazing. He's absolutely amazing. He is full of life, full of beans, lovely 4-year-old. We shot the film when he was 4, who was able to become the quiet, introspective young boy I had written. And always there, 6 weeks of shooting every day, happy to be there, happy to be with us, happy to work with us. Magic. It was absolutely magic.
No, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time today, but have a nice...
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey,